No war on Iraq. No revolution back. Repeal the Dispatriot Act. Restore the Freedom of Information Act. No more weapons of mass distraction. When corporations say there's no freedom, they mean there's no freedom to make profits. Bush knew, Bush lied, Bush lies. You can bomb the world to pieces, but you can't bomb the world to peace. Forgiveness is more manly than punishment. Start the peace! Start the peace! Start the peace! Thank you.
And it's going on for days and days. Yes, exactly. To delay passage and make people really feel that.
Another is to develop a government in Iraq that could be a foreign policy surrogate for the United States in the region. Somehow they had the idea that they could, with shock and awe, somehow turn Iraq into some kind of Middle Eastern Orange County. And that out of that would come the dominoes of democracy that would take over the Middle East. And we would have a gigantic Middle Eastern Orange County. But you know, one of the problems with them, however, is that the ideology clouds their perception of reality. They look at what's going around and all they see is what they think. And so we have these astounding situations where, as this article said, they can have Bush calling for Syria to get out of Lebanon, and they can't have free and fair elections if there are 15,000 troops in Syria. Well, there are 150,000 U.S. troops in Iraq, which he says are then, you know, essential, and has already declared, of course, the elections that they had free and fair. Well, you know, they have that view. We have to be consistent and on message in pointing out the unreality of it, the criminality of it, the murderousness of it, and we have to shout out that the way to solve this problem is to bring the troops home now. There's a lot, you know, all these things will happen as though they weren't happening now already. But the thing is, not only is it possible to bring the troops home now, it's essential. Bringing the troops home now is the road to peace in the Middle East overall. Now we're going to have a number of...
Thank you, Larry. Before I start, I want to put a plug in for truthout.org in case you don't know it.
Can you
It's
repeat
free
that?
and it does your research for you. And every day you'll get lots of articles from the U.S. and the foreign press, which will be very, very helpful to understand what's happening in the world. Since the September 11th attacks, the Bush administration has justified everything it does as part of the war on terror. Indeed, Bush is still in the White House, largely because he was portrayed as tough on terror. From the color-coded terror alerts to the admonitions that allowing gays to marry and then have abortions would consign us to hell. The Bush administration has capitalized on fear to remain in power. Fear has characterized Bush's wars on Afghanistan and Iraq as part of his war on terror. But those wars, and particularly the ongoing war on and occupation of Iraq, are making us more, not less, vulnerable to terrorism. Osama bin Laden's 3 pet peeves against the United States were the presence of U.S. troops in Saudi Arabia, home to Islam's holiest shrines, the deaths of 1 million innocent Iraqis as a result of U.S.-backed sanctions, and complicity in Israel's treatment of the Palestinians. One of Bush's unstated reasons for changing Iraq's regime was to build permanent U.S. military bases there. Indeed, Halliburton's Brown and Root is busy constructing 14 of them. So we can remove our troops from Saudi Arabia because of the unstable situation there. But that still does not address the concern of many in the Muslim world that the Western infidels are still meddling to the detriment of the people there. Because of Bush's war, Iraq has become a magnet for terrorism. Although most of the resistance fighters are Iraqis opposing foreign occupation, there are those such as al-Zarqawi who see the war on Iraq as a war on Muslims. As long as that war and occupation continue, our troops in Iraq and we at home will be increasingly vulnerable to terrorism. In addition, Bush's uncritical support for Israel's occupation of Palestinian lands has created widespread resentment against the U.S. in the Arab and Muslim world. Hamas, which combines political action and militant jihad with humanitarian programs, enjoys widespread support among Palestinians. That is not to say that Hamas does not engage in terrorism. Whenever civilians are targeted, be it by suicide bombers or by cluster bombers, that is terrorism. When Bush's weapons of mass destruction rationale for changing Iraq's regime evaporated, he turned to bringing democracy to the Iraqi people. That too is specious. The U.S. has a history of supporting democratic governments when it suits its purposes and overthrowing them and installing dictators when it does not. Chile, Guatemala, and Iran are three prime examples. Corporate investment thrives on stability. Saudi Arabia, a Bush family favorite, is a monarchy friendly to U.S. corporate investment. If the Iraqis vote for an Islamic government unfriendly to corporate investment, the U.S. will not stand for it, notwithstanding Bush's rhetoric about democracy. Globalization in its present form, the World Trade Organization, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank, serves the rich countries of the North to the detriment of the developing countries of the South. The thousands of people in the streets in Seattle, Cancun, and Miami understood that well. Bush's selection of Paul Wolfowitz, neoconservative architect of preemptive war and the war on Iraq, for chairman of the World Bank is telling. Wolfowitz will have his finger on the jugular vein of the organization that makes loans to developing countries contingent upon structural adjustment programs that strangle their ability to provide social services for their people. It is the economic arm of U.S. imperialism. Many Democrats in Congress are now jumping on Bush's hooray for us in the Middle East bandwagon, putting a good face on the occupation. We must pressure them, but we cannot rely on them. We must stand up to Bush's assault by speaking out, by writing, and by gathering together in demonstrations like this one today. It is our only hope. Thank you.
There you go, and he's here with us today. Congressman Bob Filner.
You don't know how beautiful you guys look. I just got back from Washington this morning, and it's pretty grim there, I'll tell you. Those guys think they run the world, and that nobody is challenging them anywhere in America. So you guys look beautiful, and I know there's these things going on all over the country, and hopefully Congress will hear it. You know, I sit in the House of Representatives every day, and I see literally this country is being bled dry by this war. It's being bled dry if you look at the young men and women who are killed and injured. You know the statistics. Over 1,500 killed, more than 10,000 wounded, many of them, and I've been up to Walter Reed and Bethesda, hundreds and hundreds with limbs amputated, because we know how to do that now and without them dying. Not to mention the thousands and thousands and thousands of Iraqis and others that we are killing every day. This is bleeding us and the world dry. But it's also bleeding our national treasure in terms of money dry. You know, we are the richest country in the history of the world. And I know you agree with me what we can do with those resources. I mean, think of the kids that we could educate, the health care that we could give to everybody, the environment that we can save, the housing that we can do. And we know that the war against terrorism means that we ought to use these resources to help people get out of poverty and get out of hunger so they won't be terrorists and challenge civilization. But we can't do all these other things. We don't have the money. We got the biggest deficit in the history of the world. We got the biggest debt in the history of the world. You know, every 2 or 3 days. This is the only sentence I need when I talk around on my community about the war. Every 2 or 3 days, we spend $1 billion. That's $1 billion. I could give any one of you and whatever you espouse for the community, I'd give you 1 week of the war and you change the world. But we're spending that every 2 or 3 days. And then the president has the nerve to tell me that we can't support the veterans who are coming back, who are going to have post-traumatic stress disorder, and we're going to cut those programs. We're going to cut people from their housing vouchers because we don't have enough money. We can't enforce our environmental laws because we don't have enough money. We can't make sure every kid lives up to his or her potential in terms of our educational system because we don't have any money. We have the money, ladies and gentlemen. It's being wasted every day in the scale that you just cannot even imagine. The scale of this crime is so big that it's hard to see. So thank you for being here. Washington thinks that the country is behind them. We have got to have demonstrations, we've got to have teach-ins, we've got to have speeches, we've got to have marches. I'm arguing for 1 million veteran march on Washington to protest the budget. We ought to have another 1 million march on Washington to protest this war. Unless Washington hears noise, they're not going to change. So let's get out there and make some noise. Thank you.
For his remarks and his encouragement. And what and the show, well, my dad was one of those people who was wounded at Iwo Jima, and he would be quick to call the lie that what's happening in Iraq and Afghanistan has anything at all to do with freedom or fighting for it. And he would feel a kinship for the courageous young people in today's military who are speaking out against war in general and against this one. As did our next speaker last December the 6th when he declined to board a ship that was transporting Marines to Iraq. So please welcome Pablo Paredes.
I think you just answered my first question. because I was gonna first ask for an apology for the entire peace community for what I spent the last 4.5 years of my life doing. And I think you've accepted that apology. So thank you very much. For about 4.5 years, I was blind, deaf, and dumb to a lot of things. And you know, it's not by any accident that someone that comes from where I come from, and you know, whose skin is the color of mine, and whose family came from the projects that mine did, was as blind to these things as they are. You know, education is where the money's leaving from, and programs to recruit, programs to do other things is where the money's going to. So that creates people like me. And I don't want to make excuses because there's ways to find out. So it's a heartfelt apology that I'm trying to give to everybody here, to the peace community in the world. Because for 4.5 years, I dedicated my mind and my body to the cause of war, to the cause of destruction, to the end of life. And there's no justification for that. There's not one politician on this planet that can give you a justification for that. Now, in my defense, I never gave them my heart or my soul, and I'm giving it to you very willingly. I will give my heart, my soul, and everything that I have left to this war, the war against this war, to the war for peace. You know, the mainstream wants people to think that this is an absurd idea, the one that we're talking about here, the one that made all these flyers, the one that brought all these people. But in a place like this, we've got hundreds of people. You zoom out a little further, in California, there's thousands. You zoom out a little further, there's millions in this country. And you zoom out further, there's billions all across the world doing exactly what we're doing here today, lending their souls and their hearts, not just their minds and their body, but their souls and their hearts to the cause of peace. We can't be beat. We're not gonna lose. We have more numbers, and we have hearts and souls fighting for our cause. We don't have marketing schemes, we don't have dollar bills on our side, but we've got hearts, souls, and numbers, and that cannot be beat.
Alternative media and social change philanthropy. She's one of the founding members of the San Diego Coalition for Peace and Justice, Joni Craig.
San Diego Coalition for Peace and Justice is comprised of hundreds of people. However, it is just a handful of people that have brought you this event today. And they have brought you a stage and...
To take the time to men, do my own thing like Heavy D and the boys before they reminisced over
we reminisce over
Roy.
You, the troops.
Now my balance is back like butterfly collars and bell bottoms, still plotting coup d'etats. Keep the applause, I'm just trying to get my message across. In your grill like PE, raw like Kane, sugar the big daddy, whether you're pushing a shopping cart or a caddy. See, I'm reaching all and pulling no punches. Dead press, push-ups and crunches. Heady nuts and hippie thugs, lost in translation, fragile foundations. For those that stay true, I appreciate the patience. Now let's rise up like the Haitians in 1791.
Yes, let's rise up,
it ain't
people.
over till we say it's over.
It's never over. It's never over.
Which is why a brother like me who has never been breastfed, could never start with Lady Liberty's callous nipples where freedom once flowed freely.
Freedom once flowed
freely. Flowed freely I express. Embracing that freedom of speech that they oppress when you voice opinions that differ from the popular. So many of us are silent and just accept the fact that our government kills innocent men, women, and children.
Kills innocent men.
Thunderous crash. Thought interrupted abruptly. The stench of innocent bloodshed permeates throughout the atmosphere. Hysterically, I laugh in shock, unable to maintain a steady thought. A jolt of reality hit me like I just tied one off and took one straight into the bloodstream. Now I'm on the verge of ODing off of this nonsense that they broadcast at the bottom of TV screens. So I stay committed to the resistance. Sacrifice my existence. Committed to uplifting. Because we have to save the future for the children.
I will never be the same. I got to progress. I will never be the same. I got to progress. I will never be the same. I I will never be the same. Committed to the resistance, sacrificed my existence, traveled underground to a land not too far from here, but oh so different. Some think uncivilized, I think socialized, revolutionized, idealized by many because the class differences have molded into one to stand strong against all odds. Imperialist greed, money-hungry vultures disguised as capitalist ventures. They have fought for their rights and gained independence from the materialist dreams that plague many here. I've seen it with my own eyes. I'm so inspired, so empowered, because when we, all of us, as a people, unite as one, we can defeat anything in front of us. Anything in front of us. I've seen it with my own eyes. These eyes that will never be the same. These lips that will never be silent, these feet that will keep on marching hasta la victoria, my final destination. And if I die and don't see the day where this world will be free of hate, my spirit will live on like the spirit of my ancestors that pushed me to strive for mankind. Some think I might be a dreamer, but I saw la realidad. This is possible. Remove the blindfold, let your eyes see, let your soul feel. This is only the beginning. We have work to do. We have work to do. Many have fallen to the wayside, given up hope. The mental chains got you on lockdown, but my brother, my sister, I got the key. You got the key. It's right here. Love. Love is the key. Love is the key. Empower yourself and share it with the world. Empower yourself and share it with the world. Empower yourself and share it with the world. Commitment to the resistance. Commitment to the resistance.
My commitment to resistance. Sacrifice my existence. Committed to uplifting. Save the future for the children. From coast to coast, I see a host of the most failing to coach and raise our very own young men, trying to relive the good old days of innocence, fun and games, kickball, football, stickball, wiffle ball, before the brand names and the full-time jobs. I remember I was once in a daze until I returned to the page. Published tales of survivals and rivals, real-time trials and tribulations. I flipped and flipped and flipped those pages, because the truth is in the book, not on the TV. So I flipped and kept flipping those pages, crisscrossed this nation where so much hatred still exists. So we build to resist. We build to resist, like those Tiananmen kids. The gift is in the script. And I admit, sometimes it sounds a bit gospelish. Because the poems and the lessons sound like proverbs and shit. And these cats I roll with, speaking tongues on some poetic tales of the real hatred we're facing. Yet we're still fist raising, and the sun and the night come together and fight, sacrificing our existence, committed to uplifting, to resisting. Resistance. Everybody, resistance.
County Coalition for Peace and Justice is having Medea Benjamin, the other co-founder of Code Pink, here on April 8th. If you want to go and listen, you can buy tickets over in their booth and over in the corner. And I just want to honor the members of Code Pink. You know, Code Pink San Diego women have been sitting in this park every Sunday for 2 years. Go San Diego Code Pink!
Bush's wives are mighty old.
We don't want their violent war.
We don't want their violent war.
Gotta walk till our feet are sore.
Gotta walk till our feet are sore.
Now it is time to pull out.
Now it is time to pull out.
Let's all give the Code Pink shout.
Let's all give the Code Pink shout.
Sound off.
Sound off.
Sound off.
Sound off.
Woo!
foreign power. These are the words of George Bush quite recently as he commented on the current situation taking place in Lebanon. His seeming concern for democracy in one country, while frankly is also a thinly veiled agenda in itself, is a far cry from the actions being carried out in the name of creating democracy in Iraq. In fact, Bush and his pro-war cronies have insisted that since Iraqis lack certain capacities, that would not or could not free themselves, then we will do it for them. Using outright lies, media manipulation, bullying tactics, and frenzied nationalism and whipping up of racist scapegoating against Arabs, the call to war was issued, and 2 years ago, the war hawks threw the U.S. military might on an already weakened and struggling country, paving the way for what Bush calls freedom. But freedom for who? By daily bombing campaigns, armed intimidation, leveling of whole cities like Fallujah, torture, imprisonment, cutting off needed services and supplies, and preventing any dissent? By carving out the economy and siphoning its wealth to foreign governments and multinational corporations? That definitely seems more like the ingredients of a brutal occupation. And this is something that the U.S. has plenty of experience with. Just ask the peoples of Haiti, the Philippines, Palestine, Vietnam, Korea, Cambodia, Chile, Argentina, and actually most of Central and South America, and more recently, Afghanistan. The aims of any occupation are to create an atmosphere that breaks all resistance and dissent and reshapes it into a useful, powerful tool for the occupying country to exploit and control. What is there in Iraq that our government could possibly want? Oil. Who gets the most protection in Iraq? Oil companies. There has not been any winning of hearts and minds in Iraq. Instead, we have seen fierce and vehement resistance to this occupation in Iraq and around the world. The Iraqi resistance has been downplayed by the warmongers and represented in the media as a band of foreign rebel extremists bent on destroying democracy. This is completely false. The majority of the population in Iraq resents U.S. presence and wants the immediate and complete withdrawal of U.S. troops. The sham elections held earlier this year painted a picture of smiling Iraqis and happy U.S. officials and their ink-stained fingers, proclaiming that Iraqis are now free. Well, many of them didn't even get to vote because they couldn't even eat. And as one man in Iraq stated, "When I go to vote, my clothes will be filthy, my body will stink, and I will be thirsty." Freedom means no water, no electricity, no fuel, just elections. There is also resistance in labor unions such as the Basra Oil Workers Union, who see using industrial power and connecting the labor movement with the anti-occupation resistance movement as necessary, using workers' clout to send a clear message stated very eloquently in a public statement they released in February. We will solve our own problems. We are Iraqis. We know our country and we can take care of ourselves. We have the means, the skills, and resources to rebuild and create our own democratic society. We, as the anti-occupation and anti-war movement, must recognize that there is a power in resistance and dissent. In 2003, over 10 million people around the world came out to say hell no to this war. And 1 million of those people were here in the United States. It's still clear that the world is opposed to this war and occupation. It's important that we support Iraqi resistance and see it as a major vehicle towards ending this invasion. Also, to see a nation's right to self-determination as an important part of the international struggle for workers' rights and a point of unity, and recognize that the U.S. government's military and corporations are the main impediments to peace in Iraq, the Middle East, and around the world. U.S. client regimes do not equal democracy. We must support the rights of all occupied countries to resist and take their own countries back. No occupation brings liberation, only another kind of tyranny and desperation. Let us take up these slogans with confidence. Bring the troops home now. No to your war for oil and all occupations, and Iraq for the Iraqis. Thank you.
Thank you for showing up to voice your opinion against this continuing war. I want to talk about two things. One is civil rights in this country, and the other one is a notion that a friend of mine coined that's called decoromocracy, and I'll explain to you what that means. About civil rights, I don't know how many of you know, but we still have the Patriot Acts on the books. I noticed there's a table back there of somebody asking to repeal the Patriot Act. You should really learn about it, understand how that affects your civil rights, things that you've gained in this country over decades of struggle to get these civil rights, and they're being repealed right now with the Patriot Act. And one of the things that's very scary to me, and it should be to you, is how this act is being used to intimidate the Muslim and Arab American community in this country. I'll give you just one example. There's an organization that's called the Freedom House. And this organization, it's a right-wing organization, and it has published a report about Islamic centers in the US. And they claim in the report that these Islamic centers teach hate and intolerance. Of course, they haven't looked at all the churches that teach hate, or all the synagogues and all the wackos that teach hate. They then targeted and listed the names of all these Islamic centers and their addresses and phone numbers. And now we have organizations like the ADL and other organizations that claim to support people's civil rights, and they're targeting these Islamic centers and intimidating them, including the Islamic Center of San Diego on Balboa. That's being targeted for supposedly promoting hate, even though that center had promoted interfaith dialogue for more than 10 years now. They've had groups of rabbis and ministers and so on meet on a regular basis to discuss interfaith in San Diego, and now they're being targeted. So that should scare you, because if they target them, they can target you, and they can accuse you of promoting hate also. So we should be very careful about that. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is this whole notion that Bush is promoting of the greater Middle East and promoting so-called democracy and freedom. And what we've seen in the media, and you should be very careful about that, are images of what I call decoromocracy, which is a decorative democracy. In other words, the media is now shaping in our minds and our consciousness a way that democracy looks like. And it's not democracy. It's something that looks like what the US wants to promote. So in Lebanon, you have demonstrations of one faction of Lebanese people that represent a large segment of the Lebanese people, but they are the segment that our government likes because they want US intervention. They look modern and they look Western. They are the rich of Lebanon. They're the bourgeoisie of Lebanon. And when they demonstrate, the media calls it freedom. That's what freedom looks like. When you have 1 million people of the poor of Lebanon and the workers and the unions and everybody who's oppressed in Lebanon demonstrate at the same place in the middle of Beirut, they're being dismissed as people who Hezbollah brought out and so on. This is very dangerous. This is what's being promoted in the world. It's a so-called democracy based on class distinctions, and it has to look Western and modern, and they have to be well-nourished people. And that's not the majority of the world, of the people in the Middle East. That's not the majority of the people in the world. So make your voices heard, call these media outlets and tell them we want the truth. Why aren't you covering the millions of other people also demonstrating for democracy, true democracy in the Middle East? Why aren't you covering them? Is it because they don't look the part? That's very important. So please keep up your good work. Let's get our troops back home, out of Iraq, and let Iraq really be free from US occupation. Thank you very much.
Pablo Paredes, an active duty sailor, speak a little bit ago. Carlo Lorenzo is part of Military Families Speak Out, the organization of families of people in the military who have been courageous in their own right and quite forthright in speaking out against this war.
Sorry, I'm a little nervous and I'm not a speaker. My name is Carla Lorenzo, and I want to take this opportunity to tell you about our organization, the San Diego chapter of the Military Families Speak Out. We are a group of civilians and military personnel who share the same ideas of peace and that war is not a solution for international conflict. I would like to encourage everybody to take us time and join us and join our group. You do not necessarily have to be part of the military to join the MFSO. As members of the MFSO, we take part in different manifestations such as this event and voice our ideas of peace and justice. We regularly hold meetings and discuss current events and projects. We can visit us at www.mfso-sd.org or email us at bringthemhome@hotmail.com to receive more information and become part of this group. Our group is always on the look for new enthusiastic members, and we believe that there is a strength in number, and we can accomplish a lot if we are all together working. Thank you very much.
This is for 2 years, and they've shed none of their relevance. Will be heard over the bomb's crimson Blair. These roads will be marked by the ash of despair. Fears, screams, and flames, tears bleed as rain, cheers ring for pain, clear dreams for change. But this nightmare exists, sights belabored by fists, red blood floods the streets as we march to war's beat. With the syncopation of feet, our rhyme fueled by heat, this voice of choice will rise like 6 a.m. sun over the explosion of this erratic friction and menacing madness. This voice made of static, of a million merged minds who swung swollen fist at times, and its lack of existence. Low wages a sentence, the discontented venting frustration to the misled nation who's been fed as sure a lie as 2 + 2 is 5, a waged war for freedom and bombs for liberation. But it's only terrorism when it's all people who die. So I walk through this rubble and skeletal dust, shrapnel, glass, nails, and rust, sweating darkness in the midst of this pollution mist. Each breath and each step holds on to high risk, breathing in smoke and breathe out focused anger, dagger filled back, inhaling this danger. Stranger times, they have never existed, though it's always been headed towards this. List of mystics and misfits predicted this shit in the bleak, disturbed sleep with their unwanted visions. Sages gave warnings of a sky with flames pouring, built a stern wooden edifice of awareness is forming, only to be scorched by the fires red storming. Global warming will burn body and reveal this in a fog of deceit so thick you can feel its lead weight of realness. The lie is immense, these statements scar skin, abrasive racist cloak intent to climb ladders, be leaders, and deceive with no end. You are no friend, so do not shake my hand when campaigning for votes in these pain concrete camps. Camouflage the slaughter to which you lead our lambs, where kids enlist to be blown to bits. If their history hadn't been completely eclipsed, a million raised fists would be the beacons of resistance. So I'm heading hung over by shots of defeat and deceit, with patriotic patriarchy's fraternity scream. So I wade through this chaos, fingers strangle my pen, venting my November 3rd lament that more than 50% might have voted Bush in, lauded as the man who forcibly fends foreign harm when the largest security breach occurred during his term. So there's a rancid right-wing revolution sweeping these streets with its cancerous confusion. Constitution gutted and our words redefined. Freedom is slavery, ask no questions, it's bravery. Dissent is disloyalty, president almost royalty. Liberation falls from the sky with an explosion. Patriotism is a hollowed out vacant slogan. If you swallow the lies, they may choke you to death. And if you speak out against them, they may still take your breath. So my comrades in combat, these bomb threats are constant. We'll march through this darkness, our torches, our hearts, yes. We'll start this been brewing. The flames found its spark in this nonsense is teeming. Each of us plays a part in the movement of those saturated with this hatred. Hand in hand, voices raised, minds are armed with inspiration, with the patriotic echo that stopped the Vietnam War. If these words aren't the key, then we will break down the door. With the patriotic echo that stopped the Vietnam War. If these words aren't the key, then we will break down the door. With the patriotic echo that stopped the Vietnam War. If these words aren't the key, then we will break down the door. With the patriotic echo that stopped the Vietnam War. If these words aren't the key, then we will break down this door.
I'm Fabian. I'm with Asistencia Estudiantil, a student activist group at City College. Here to speak about the poverty drought. So anyhow, 159 years ago, the United States invaded Mexico and occupied and claimed 8 new states. Even today, over a century later, American corporations are still setting up shop in Mexico and are still exploiting Mexico resources. It is a bizarre version of manifest destiny that still goes on today. And today, our most important resources, our boys and girls, are being sent to other countries, such as Iraq, to kill and die to protect the interests of this very same companies. The military is now stepping up the recruitment efforts because of unmet quotas. Low interest in joining because of the lack of support for the current war on terror and the invasion and occupation of Iraq are causes for those unmet recruitment goals. The military is spending millions of dollars in their recruitment efforts. In fact, this year their advertising budget is $250 million, with a goal of bringing in 80,000 new soldiers. They also have a high concentration of recruitment centers in poor working class neighborhoods. A 2001 report revealed that community colleges provided an underutilized market for recruitment. Therefore, they're now aggressively targeting community colleges and technical schools located in these neighborhoods. According to the same report, 72% of the targeted population has a negative propensity towards enlisting. The military tries to win them over by promising money for education and job training. A major effort to expand Latino enlistment has been mounted, and an increase of recruitment fraud has also been reported. The government has enacted laws to allow for recruiters to carry out this form of draft. They're forcing schools to allow recruiters on campus with the threat that they will lose federal funds if they don't. But they're now finding resistance among students. On several campuses, students are organizing and have successfully banned recruiters from their schools. Students are saying no to the occupations. We have organized at our school, and today we marched to the South Bay to bring awareness to our community. We have marched to tell the current U.S. administration that the Latino community and working class people will not participate in this current occupation. We're letting those who have mounted racist attacks against the Latino community know that we will no longer remain silent. We will not go and do to others what the United States has done to us. During the invasion and occupation of Mexico, close to 800 of largely Irish-born immigrants to the United States deserted the U.S. Army in favor of the Mexican side. Many of them fought against brutal racist discrimination received in the United States. U.S. historians regard these men as traitors, but in Mexico we see them as heroes. We're now following the footsteps of the San Patricios by fighting an imperialist government who's not fighting a war of liberty, but one of conquest against people such as ourselves. Thank you.
San Diego, the Jewish-Palestinian dialogue. It started off some years ago with a small group, but it's been ongoing and growing. And we have today to speak someone who's part of that group here in San Diego, Miko Pellet.
This isn't part of my speech, but I think these flags are amazing. I think everybody should buy one and hang it at their house. Can you imagine? Pellet, I'm an Israeli, and I'm Jewish. I'm a member of the Jewish-Palestinian Dialogue here in San Diego. And like all of you here, I also call on George Bush to end the occupation of Iraq, and call on Ariel Sharon to end the oppression and occupation in Palestine. In 1948, when the news came out of Israeli soldiers murdering Palestinian civilians, the Israeli poet Natan Alterman published the following lines in his daily column. Young men who wield weapons quite often resort, under guise of collateral, fear, or revenge, to war crimes. And those who say nothing, my friends, share the blame. Well, my friends, all of us here today are among thousands around the world who are saying something. Yeah. We are saying to Bush and we are saying to Sharon, put an end to your policy of occupation and murder and abuse. But saying this is not enough. The occupation and destruction of Iraq by American forces is destroying Iraq, but it is also ruining America. The occupation, oppression, and murder of Palestinians by Israel is destroying the Palestinian people, but it's also killing Israel. The voices of innocent Israelis, Palestinians, Americans, and Iraqis who were killed for oil and for land and for power are calling on all of us to end the Israeli terrorism and to stop the American weapons of mass destruction. Because the terrorists in the Middle East today are not Iraqis and they're not Palestinians. The terrorists in the Middle East today are American and Israeli forces. And the weapons of mass destruction are not made in Iraq, and they're not made in Syria. They're made in Israel and in the United States. My friends, there are two obstacles to peace in the Middle East today. One is a radical Christian fundamentalist by the name of George Bush, and the other, a militant Jew by the name of Ariel Sharon, two men who claim the so-called Judeo-Christian values, but in fact value oil and land and power above all else. But we have to do more than protest. We have to do more than pray for our children while they live and cry for them when they're killed. We have to reach out. Look around you today. Look around you. You see Israelis and Palestinians, you see Jews and Arabs, and you see Americans of all faiths, all traditions, standing together for peace. Ladies and gentlemen, to fight racism and to fight hatred, we have to engage in dialogue. We have to listen and to accept each other as human beings. Only through dialogue and through united action will the Israeli weapons of mass destruction be rendered useless and the Bush policies of occupation and oppression go bankrupt. When we enter into dialogue, the barriers that divide us crumble, and suddenly young girls with scarves no longer seem like a threat, and young men with their heads covered don't necessarily symbolize the occupation. We must all work together so that Israelis and Palestinians are free from Sharon and that Ariel Sharon is indicted as a war criminal. And we must all act together to free Iraqis and Americans of George Bush and to see him indicted for the murder and destruction of Iraq. Thank you very much.
Sarah Haldeman Scar, who is the interim pastor from the Church of the Brethren.
I'm thankful for the invitation to be here today on behalf of the communities of conscience. I'm an ordained minister in the Church of the Brethren, grew up in the Church of the Brethren, and our campus is located in Fairmount Park. I invite anybody who'd like to be a part of a peace church to come and join us. We believe that peace is something worth fighting for, but our fight is centered in the peace, justice, and nonviolence demonstrated in the life and teachings of Jesus. We truly believe that when Jesus said, "Love your enemies," he didn't mean to kill them. We believe in praying for those who hurt us and living a life that pursues nonviolence in the pursuit of peace. As communities of faith, whatever faith community you call your own, I believe it's time to speak our conscience. To speak our conscience, calling out on behalf of God's humanity against the voices of violence, and to say, war is wrong, and this war is very wrong. values. We believe in things like truth, love, reaching out a hand to those people who need help. For many people of faith, war, any war, is in direct affront to all those values. This war needs to stop. This occupation needs to end. The lack of, the lack of truth-telling is incredible. The crimes against peace and the movement toward preemptive war, all of these are wrong. My faith tradition tells me war is wrong. It's never acceptable. My faith tradition values a global community, recognizing the image of God and its goodness in each and every person and thing created. Would that we knew the things that make for peace. Seek peace, pursue it. That's what being a living peace church is all about. My faith tradition tells me that in seeking peace, truth-telling is an integral part, and I need to base relationships in truth. As a person of the Christian faith, I'm asked to be truthful in all things, no matter how painful that may be, and I'm grieved to know that my government has gone to war. That in itself, for me, is difficult to accept, but to know that that decision to go to war was based on lies and false information is even worse. It's disturbing. It's beyond disturbing, it's wrong. Truth is a necessity in continuing a relationship of trust between individuals, whether they're families, workplace, or global. As the Americas, we need to admit we were wrong, restore truth-telling, and return to a decision process making based on truth. My faith tradition tells me that God created everyone in the image of the divine. He didn't just create Americans and call them good. He created everyone. God created everyone in God's image. That's what my faith tradition teaches me. It teaches me that if I've done it to the least of these, I've done it to God. The treatment of the people of God who were captured and had to endure torture and humiliation is not right. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. When we participate in such actions, we invite those actions to come back on our heads. Bombs that explode civilian areas destroy people created in the image of God. It's wrong. I believe war grieves God to the heart. I believe God is shedding tears of sorrow. It's time to turn back, to pray for those who hate us, to address the causes instead of symptomologies. It's time to commit ourselves to the love of God and the people God created by God's hands. In prayerful consideration of all things and war and violence, call for the communities of conscience to join in being a constant peace witness, empowering all people to live lives of peace and justice. It's time to bring the troops home. It's time to begin to pursue peace through means of love. It's time to find ways to address the needs of humanity that will work together for everyone's benefit. It's time to value all human life. It's time to learn from one another, work with one another, and value the gifts of each person created by the divine hand. As a person of conscience, I encourage you to act on your faith. Join those of us that are standing for values and morals represented in our faith communities across the nation, if not the entire world. Let's join our voices together and say, war is not for us. It is not for our country. Let's take steps of nonviolence, and let's work toward the things that make for peace. Thank you.
I'm an Iraqi American. I'm also a member of Al-Auda, the Palestinian Right to Return organization. I'd like to thank the organizers of today's event for inviting us here to speak today on behalf of the downtrodden and oppressed Palestinians. Palestinians are born into the anti-war movement. Until 2 years ago, Palestine was the only Arab nation we fought to liberate. Now, occupation is on the march. Swallowing Iraq and targeting Lebanon and Syria, this administration is insatiable. Bush speaks of freedom and enforcing UN resolutions. What about freedom for the Palestinians and enforcement of UN resolutions against Israel? The total hypocrisy practiced by this administration is beyond compare. While Bush pretends to be concerned for the Lebanese people's right to live free of Syrian influence, his administration has aligned itself with the most brutal oppressor of national aspirations of all, the Sharon government of Israel. It is laughable for Bush to attack Syria and Iraq on notions of democracy and freedom when he wholeheartedly supports Israel's occupation of Palestinian land and refuses to recognize even the most basic of human rights for the Palestinians, like the right to return to their homeland from which they were driven. It is outrageous for Bush to say that we are bringing democracy to the Middle East when the past 2 years have seen the greatest attack and destruction of Arab culture from Palestine to Iraq. Pretty soon, I fear, Iraqis will be fighting for their right to return to Iraq, US-occupied territory. I know that the struggle is large and growing by the day in the peace movement. I know that we here in this movement are struggling on a daily basis to put out the fires started by this administration. But I urge you all not to forget about the longest struggle against occupation of all, that of the Palestinian people. In Arabic we say, El al-Auda. In English that means, until return. Thank you.
From your soul. And you can't tell me that peace isn't meant to be, because I'm not feeling that. No, I'm not feeling that.
I'm not feeling it. Tired of the hatred, tired of the pain. I'm not feeling it.
I'm not feeling it.
Tired of the way they try to run our lives. I'm not feeling it, no. Sick of all the lies, things never change. I'm not feeling it, no. I'm not feeling it. Open up your eyes, realize we don't see eye to eye. Tired of the hatred, tired of the pain. I'm not feeling it. Tired of the way they try to run our lives. I'm not feeling it.
Today, the same man threw his pistol at the fence in our backyard. He shot at the kids playing by the river like they were some type of rabid dog. So did I do. Our questions were silent, denouncing his lies and violence. You see, I remember yesterday when we chased my sister with that fire hose, those German shepherds that had that gold badge and that black mask covering his nose. Today, the same man would not shake my hand, afraid that he's I feel like I have to be jumpsuit. He didn't know it was free to fight. October moon and Mars to the right, I believe it is he. The militarization of our government is the truth.
Would have had the technology that is available to Bush. Right. That's the difference. It's a direct quote from Rumsfeld. How ironic, isn't it? He was speaking of Iraq, of course.
I know. It's incredible.
You're reaching into that checks and balances. Don't give this guy more.
L. Howard.
Patriotism, and I feel exactly the same way right now.
Prior to addressing the pressing, stressing, depressing issue of war, there's one other issue I'd like to explore. And the fact that I don't hear a million voices so shout.
Most of these are just 2003 numbers.
Yeah, it's climbing.
George
I want to know what the problem is. That's the problem.
Rain,
on and slave and live with democracy. Raising in the air with all Americans. So much for oil, so much for oil, so much for oil.
Yeah, we've been doing pretty good. Here's one more.
So,
There she is. The cutest.
Akbar Ahmed, Samina Nazir, thank you both for joining us tonight.
thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll be back with a word of
Power and performance. Will the Dutchman finally get his recognition? Plus, see what happened in a sensational super featherweight showdown as Eric Morales and Manny Pacquiao went toe-to-toe. Eric Morales versus Manny Pacquiao.